Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. 877-973-7425 is the phone number should you wish to be on the program. Delighted to have you with me today. Don't forget to text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. You can get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, and a whole lot more. I'm continuing to just dwell on and there's another point to be had here on this murder in Charlotte, North Carolina's Democrats don't know how to respond. You got Van Jones, who I do like, on CNN saying the guy was hurting. The guy was hurting. You know who's not hurting? The dead girl. She's not hurting now. She was hurting more than him there for a little while. The sick compassion on the left. I want to play you this clip. This is from, and you know I don't like it, and I really don't like to play clips from the show because I don't like to put a spotlight on it. So Abby Phillips on CNN has the show. It's Struggle Session with Abby Phillips. I think it's I don't even know what time it's on, but it's essentially it's the Maoist struggle session that Abby Phillips leads against conservatives every night on CNN. And I want to play for you just one little bit of this clip here.
Absolutely.
One of the discussions that we've had earlier this week is that one of the failures that we have is that we have not figured out how to actually provide that kind of care.
Mhm.
That, if someone is actually seriously mentally ill, maybe on the verge of violence, where do they go?
We're unwilling
Except
to
on the
put
street.
in
Or North Carolina, not on the
resources.
verge of
We say
violence.
throw them in
Actually
jail.
demonstrated violence in the past, and nobody flagged it. Actually, the police, to your point, said we're going to refer you to more resources, and that went nowhere. So there were
What do you
multiple.
mean nobody flagged it? He served time for his violent offenses. In the
Not
past.
for his schizophrenia.
Why?
That's not a
Sir,
crime.
That's not a crime.
No, I know, but I'm saying that was compounding this entire issue.
Yeah, I know,
the
but I'm
fact that he
saying-
lashed out violently on that.
I know.
night.
I'm just saying he did actually serve time for the violent offenses
Yes.
that he committed.
But he was a career criminal, a repeat offender who was let back onto our streets despite a really bad criminal record that suggests he should have been locked away for life because he was threatening the public. He was a menace to society.
He should have been locked away for life for what now?
He should have schizophrenia.
You want him?
You actually said that. I can't believe you actually said that.
You
Somebody
want-
should be
No,
locked
he should-
away in jail forever for schizophrenia. Did you really say that?
Isolated
Did you really say that?
in an institution.
Is this actually?
Institution.
This is
Wow.
Do you, hold on a
You're-
second.
You see this? She's right. And she should have said up front, an institution. We have these state-run mental institutions around the country. There's one about 45 minutes away from me here in Milledgeville, Georgia. I grew up across the street from one in Louisiana. Yeah, the jokes write themselves. I get it. I am from a small town in Louisiana, Jackson, Louisiana, in East Feliciana Parish. And 2 blocks from my house was the outer gate to the East State Hospital. It's the mental institution where they would put the people, and further down the road from me was a prison for the criminally insane. That's the area I grew up in. I grew up in basically the entire parish that I lived in. Louisiana's parishes, not counties. The entire parish was essentially welfare for the state. You had the state prisons, state mental institutions, state prison for the criminally insane, state retirement home for war veterans. But you had a mental institution that was state run. And in the 1970s, the Democrats got the bright idea that we should allow the crazy out of the institutions and mainstream them, mainline them into society where we would treat them in halfway houses. There's very near me a very well-to-do upper middle class neighborhood. And the state bought a house at the edge of that neighborhood and turned it into a halfway house where people who were being let out of the mental institutions could stay and get treatment. And you will not be surprised to learn that crime went up in the neighborhood. For some reason, the left got twisted on who we're supposed to help in society. I am an evangelical Christian, as all of you know. We are to love God above all else and love our neighbor. And loving our neighbor includes loving the schizophrenic, homeless, bad guy. But it also includes loving the young lady from Ukraine, the refugee from a war who came to this country. And for some reason on the left, they've decided we have to love them both the same way, where in so doing, it means we must both let them roam society. Except one of them is a threat to the other. And the left no longer can make the logical argument that some people are a threat to society and should be put somewhere for themselves. And I want you to think about this. I really just follow the logic with me on this. Follow the logic here. We were supposed to let the murderer roam free. We were supposed to let the guy, DeCarlos Brown, roam society. He's been convicted 12 times of crimes, arrested 14 times, been in and out of prison, has schizophrenia, and we're supposed to let him roam free because the left says that's loving your neighbor. Van Jones says he was hurting. He was hurting. You know what? If my neighbor is hurting, I want him not to hurt. And sometimes what you have to do is force that person into treatment because that's loving your neighbor. But what the left says is, no, we have to allow him to roam the streets, possibly cause him. You know what's going to happen to you people on the left? Abby Phillips, do I have your attention here? Maybe because you're in this camp with your struggle session. You loved Carlos Brown so much, he murdered someone, and now he's probably going to go to prison for the rest of his life, if not get the death penalty. You loved him straight to the electric chair. That's what you people on the left did. And there's an innocent young woman from Ukraine, Irina Zarutska, who's now dead because of it. That's the perversion of love from the left. That is the twisted logic of evil, frankly. A godless, secular love that treats deviancy as normal and treats normal as deviant. The idea of compassion from the left in this society is that we should treat everybody equally, the good person and the bad person. It's one of my problems with public schools these days, where you have the good kid who is academically gifted, and God forbid that kid show up at school with Advil and hasn't told the principal about it, they're going to get suspended because we've taken discretion away to say, you know what, this is actually a good kid. They just brought Advil and didn't tell the office. They didn't give it to the nurse, as opposed to the drug dealer kid who we know has drugs all the time. No, we're going to treat him exactly equal. No, you know what? In society, there are good people and there are bad people. And on the left, they've decided the bad people, they just got to be loved a little bit more. And who are we to distinguish? If anything, on the left, they treat the good people bad. My daughter is in a great books class. They're studying Amos. At least that they blew through Amos. Amos is my favorite book of the Old Testament. Really is probably my favorite book of the Bible. Amos goes to Israel. Amos is the very first of the written prophets in the Bible. And he's from Judah, and God sends him. And Amos is a well-off guy. He's not just a poor person from the class of prophets. You know, there was a school of prophets. Isaiah was from the school of prophets. Amos was a farmer, a plantation owner, and he's sent north. And he goes to Israel, and he says to Israel, you know, you got this all wrong. You are super wealthy. We down in Judah are poor. You people in Israel, y'all are very, very well off. And you look at it and say, we must be pleasing God because we're well off. And you don't get it. This is a mercy, because this is the best you're ever going to have it. He's about to wipe you out. He made you wealthy, hoping you would turn back to him, and you didn't. So then he made you poor, hoping you'd turn back to him, and you didn't. So now he's just letting you have the best time possible, because this is the best you're going to get. You're about to be wiped out. Northern Israel, Samaria, that they misinterpreted their wealth as a blessing when really it was a curse. They thought they were living right. What were they doing? They were treating the poor terribly. And here comes Amos and says, you will be judged by God on how you treated the widows, the orphans, the poor, and the refugees. You progressives, you got a refugee murdered. You lecture me repeatedly on illegal immigrants and Jesus being a refugee. Your policies just caused a refugee from war-torn Ukraine to be murdered in Charlotte, North Carolina on light rail, and you want me to feel sorry for the murderer because he was hurting? The murderer should have been locked up for his own good and safety. And because he wasn't, because in your perverse name of compassion, you thought he should be out on the streets harming other people, and now that he's harmed them, he's probably going to be executed, if not incarcerated, for the rest of his life as a murderer. How did that love the man? Please tell me, how did it love the insane man? You lecture me on God says you got to love your neighbors. You call yourself a Christian. Yeah, I do. I call myself a Christian. I believe in loving my neighbors. Here I've got two neighbors, a Ukrainian refugee and an insane man with schizophrenia who's been out of prison constantly, in and out, in and out, in and out. So it seems to me loving him is to force him to get the help he needs, to force him to get the mental care he needs, to put him in an institution run by the state where he is not a threat to others nor to himself. And instead, your definition of loving your neighbor is letting the refugee get murdered by the insane man you refuse to force to get help. The left, the progressive left, has screwed up society. And then they say, you're just expected to deal with the homeless people. You're expected to deal with the insane people. You're expected to get on the train and be harassed. No, that's a failure of society. You have failed society by establishing that as a policy, and you think you're actually doing good for society. I want to read you this tweet. It's in the show notes. If you text Eric to 33777, ERICK to 33777, you can see this. A point to ponder from Samantha Steele Ponder. I take the subway multiple times a day, every day with my 3 kids. Every single day we encounter several clearly unwell and violent men. I've taught my kids not to make eye contact, to switch train cars even when it's not our stop, and to never get on a nearly empty train. All split-second discussions as we try to gauge whether an obviously sick person is going to hurt someone or just continue screaming, knocking things over, etc. The horrific video of Irina's murder has confirmed my belief that we have to get these men off the streets. Our DAs and judges have failed us. They show the illusion of empathy for the mentally ill, but it is neither loving nor safe to continue to let career criminals roam the streets. It never was. The left deluded itself into thinking it was loving their neighbor. No, they actually hate their neighbor. They hated their neighbor by doing this sort of stuff. They hated their neighbor. They loved evil. They loved the madman. They put their empathy for the depraved ahead of their empathy for the next door neighbor. Philip, you can cut this short little clip and you can put it online because this was very blunt. You and I on the right, because of our support for President Trump deporting immigrants, get lectured nonstop by the left on the Bible saying love your neighbor and care for the refugees. And you smug people on the left look at us all the time at Christmas and tell us how Jesus was a refugee. And you know what your public policies have done? Gotten a refugee from war-torn Ukraine murdered on a light rail system in Charlotte, North Carolina, because in the name of loving your neighbor, you left a madman out on the streets who murdered this refugee, and now he will be punished for the rest of your life. You loved him so much, he'll be punished for the rest of his life, and you loved the refugee so much, your policies got her murdered. How the hell is that actually loving your neighbor? The answer is it's not, unless you're a demented progressive who forgot that one of the core components of a just and fair society is actually treating the good people well and taking care of the bad people so they're neither harm to themselves nor to anyone else. You lost the plot point on how to deal with society, which is why the nation keeps rejecting you.
Honest.
Putting your trust in me.